Hi, I'm Emily Bawtree, and I work for About Autism. And as an organisation, we're embarking on our employee autism programme, which is working towards gaining better employability outcomes for autistic people across the UK. Currently, only 16% of autistic people are in full-time employment, which is a statistic that is frightfully low and actually not reflective of a population who are often work ready and really willing and want to engage in employment and contribute to society. Some of the greatest challenges facing autistic people in employment is the recruitment process itself, from applications all the way through to job interviews and then onboarding. In a lot of prior to application form, a lot of job descriptions, there are expectations in there that as a neurotypical person, you don't necessarily have to meet 100% of the criteria. For a person on the autism spectrum that often takes these things literally, unless they meet absolutely everything, that is already a barrier to applying for that role itself. That can be the first barrier to stop people even putting in an application. Then beyond that point, if somebody's lucky enough to get to an interview, people often find that within those interview situations, people will ask you to imagine scenarios, or to think about times in the future and how you might behave in certain situations. And for an autistic person that might have challenges around thinking ahead, planning, and social imagination, that becomes a real barrier in being able to answer those questions, which also increases anxiety and makes the rest of the interview quite challenging. There's also the general kind of cultural expectations that come with a job interview around body language and eye contact, and, for example, how you might dress. These are things that, as a neurotypical person, you kind of say your gut instinct, that you know how to do that. You know how long you should look at a person and what you should wear to an interview, and also how you should appear. For an autistic person, that can be challenging. And what's really difficult about a job interview itself is that often what we're trying to do in that short period of time as an employer is to look at how somebody builds on their CV from a personal perspective. So we're looking at them in terms of building rapport with them, building a relationship, getting to know somebody and seeing how they would kind of fit within the team. And for someone with autism who struggles with communication, that can be really challenging and put you on a back foot immediately. A lot of the time, what we're asking people to do in a standard job interview is to sell themselves, which for a lot of the roles that we're interviewing for isn't actually a requirement of the job. For a lot of autistic people, they're not great at being able to sell themselves in that kind of and communicating in that way in a face-to-face environment of that nature, but they would be really good at the task itself if asked to do it. So one of those barriers often is to employment is just around that process itself, in terms of there are so many kind of invisible barriers that gives that autistic person a challenge where a neurotypical person doesn't have it, and as a result of that makes it easier for a neurotypical person to gain that role. In the sense of sort of thinking about what autistic people can do and neurodivergent people can do, sort of best improve their chances of employment or gaining employment, my advice really would be about being confident around the adjustments that you need and being confident around your diversity. And sometimes that can be really challenging for a number of people, especially when we think about the stat I gave at the beginning of this talk. People have obviously had challenges in gaining employment and sometimes can be reluctant to divulge to employers about the differences that they have. But in my experience of working with people, it's really important to be upfront. And this kind of works on a number of levels. Realistically, if an employer right at the very start is unwilling or is inflexible around the adjustments that they can give you, it's highly unlikely that that is going to be a long-term enjoyable employment opportunity for that person. And that's it. There's one thing about gaining employment, a whole other thing around retention. Autistic people, as much as you might really want the role and you might really like it, and it might be really challenging if that employer or the recruiting organisation is pushing back on the adjustments that you really need to look for employers that embrace diversity and understand that although the way that you process might be slightly different to other employees, that doesn't mean the outcome itself will be any different or any less. And actually, in many ways, looking for employers that really embrace that and understand the benefits that a diverse workforce and a neurodivergent workforce can bring them are the kind of people that we want to look for and that we want to work for. So being upfront right from the beginning can be really supportive, not only for that employer, because they understand how to best meet your needs and to get the best out of you, but it's going to give you the biggest likelihood of success longer term in retaining that employment, staying there, and actually, most importantly, enjoying the role that you're in and getting a lot out of the workplace experience. So we're hopeful that as employers can gain a better understanding of neurodiversity and how to best support people in the workplace, we can improve the employability outcomes for autistic people across the